Devin Coldway again, my esteemed colleague from TechCrunch. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you. You good?
Yeah.
All right. Jesse, thank you so much for coming out. We met briefly at CES, but this is your first event since then, right?
Yeah, we're moving extremely fast, spend every second building, and this is the only event that I attend. Yeah.
I think it's really awesome. Thank you for making it out. So I wanted to right at the start here, if there's anybody out there who thinks this thing doesn't exist, you got one in your pocket right now, right?
I think so.
Yeah, there's the thing.
One thing I want to say is that the digital camera is really hard to get the colors right. You have to see it. But we chatted about after the speakers.
Yeah, so we're gonna play around with this backstage, but then you can go and circulate later.
Right.
Don't rush the stage.
Yeah.
It's it only responds to his voice anyway. Tell me why make this device? This is the sort of question is like Connie said, why not make an app? Why not do something? We all have powerful gadgets in our pocket. Why make this device, and why make it now?
Well, I'm not sure just that question alone I can finish answer within 18 minutes, but I'll keep it
fast.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I think first of all, the application-based operating system is dying. There's no question about that. From user perspective, user experience to be exact, that's the start of the thoughts, right? Because we realized how challenging and how difficult even for younger generation to learn how to use different apps and solve a single problem using 4 or 5 different apps and jump back and forth. It's just not intuitive enough. And I had this vision many years ago, actually 10 years ago, but the technology wasn't ready. I think with the generative AI, especially with major breakthroughs like transformers and all this key technology, this is the first time in history that devices like this is actually possible. Now, speaking of the R1 in specific, because we know that this is a brand new territory and this is a new way of interaction, we want to get it right. I mean, there is natural language applications like Siri and Alexa and Google many years ago, and we don't think that they get the experience right. So we're extremely cautious to make sure that we want to think backwards. We want to say, hey, can we reach the bar of the user experience? If we can do that, then let's lower the risk, because it's really hard to convince people get extra devices. You're gonna have your phone regardless. So like I said before, R1 is a result of de-risking. We want to say, hey, let's don't make a $1,000 device. Let's don't make a $500 device with subscriptions. Let's make a $200 device with no subscriptions. We want to lower
a $100 device or a $50 device. I mean, it feels like you kind of just named a number.
Yeah.
And maybe that was it unrealistic, do you think?
No, I mean, hardware, you put all the parts together, you have a BOM cost, right? So lower than this, it's become really fragile. And trust me on that, I want to offer you guys a $5 device, but that's just not possible. I think the hardware is a compromise between design, functionality, build quality, and user experience. I think R1 is a very good balance.
So, and you're shipping. The plan is to ship in the end of March, beginning of March.
So we're really close to 100,000 orders, but US first batch US orders start ships on March 31st, which is in about a month.
100,000 pre-orders, and you were expecting, what were you expecting, like 10,000, 20,000? I don't know.
I mean, 2 days before the keynote, I told my team it would be really nice if we can sell 500 units on day one. But we sold $18,000 units on day one. So we immediately ramped up the stock. So we're not gonna have any delay, and we ramped up the stock, and we're ready for 100,000 units.
And the design certainly. I want to talk about the software, but since we're talking about the hardware right now, Teenage Engineering, which you're on the board of, right? What is it like working with them to build something like this? Because I mean, I'm familiar with them from their audio devices and interfaces, but this is still like this is sort of outside of their normal bounds.
Well, first of all, Teenage Engineering is my hero company. I collect vintage synthesizers for past 15 years, and they're my hero company because ever since I bought the OP1, I become a huge fan of them. So just to clear the record, Teenage Engineering is not a design agency, right? The company doesn't generate revenue by, taking design contract. They're pretty much locked in their own territory, which is audio and portable synthesizers, which they're extremely good at. But they rarely do some of the collaborations. We had the first collaboration 7 years ago. But to work with Teenage is just very, very intuitive. I mean, we don't have email, we don't have, Slack. We have a secret Instagram account that we post sketches and renders, and
Someone
that's how
find this account, find the secret Instagram account and send it to me, devin@techcrunch.com, or Jesse, you can just give it to me later.
Yeah, I think once we ship our one to customer, I think I might be able to share some of the screenshots, but to
You
work
heard
with
it.
them is really, really magic.
Confirmed, it's coming to me. Watch techcrunch.com for that. I can't remember if I interrupted you or not, so we're just going to move on to the software. So the large action model, this is the sort of the centerpiece of the whole thing is this what you call large action model.
Yeah.
And we've heard a little bit about it, and we've heard you say basically that it is only possible as of the last year or so.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about it. Is it transformer based? What does the training data look like? Give us a little of the secret sauce here.
Yeah, so first of all, large action model is not a branding. It's not a fancy name we just put together. We got access for GPT APIs in the very, very early days. I think it's actually around 4 years now. So we got a first access. I saw the first version of the GPT back in 2019 at OpenAI, and I immediately thought, okay, because if you're trying to do something like this, there's two parts. There's the intention, there's action. And I started my previous company. I worked really hard on what we called NLP, natural language processing, back in the days to solve the intention. But I think it's roughly around early 2020, I got convinced that the transformer will solve 100% intention. Like ChatGPT understands exactly what you're trying to talk about, right? Then we immediately trying to use super prompts to force this language model to do things. And the result is very miserable because yes, in theory, you can force the language model to work on the tokens and kind of like get to a point that there's a demo from another company be like use LLM to go to Mr. Beast's latest YouTube video and leave a comment. Yes, in theory, language model can do that, but at what cost? You have to literally watch your screen doing that step by step, and it takes roughly around 2-3 minutes to finish one task like that. We just don't think that how that can convert into a good end user experience. So then we're like, okay, hold on, let's take a step back. Like, we should do an AI, generic AI, that just focusing solving on actions instead of intentions, because intentions is what we call large language model and transformer. And when we're trying to solve actions, there's a couple of options. There's one way you can do it like GPTs or plugins you can work on with APIs. But as a startup, that's obviously not the best way to move forward. Then we started to look at neurosymbolic. We generally designed a method to where we collect real human working on most frequent apps with our data collector vendors. So we work with third-party companies back in 2020. We start asking data collectors to help us gather real people interacting with Spotify, Uber, Expedia, DoorDash, you name it. So we have a top 800 highest frequent apps, and then we collect those recordings of real human interacting with different interfaces, and then we set up this neurosymbolic network and ask this AI, which now we call large action model, to review those clips, but frame by frame. So in general, the idea is that symbolically, the AI will be eventually smart enough to extract all the buttons, all the elements using symbolic method, and then we can basically build a logic to automate that. And a good example, which is not quite as similar, I'm trying to get less academic here, but if you think about Tesla, camera-based autonomous driving, I mean, Tesla is not hiring engineers to hard program what is a stop sign, right? They set up this.
I think they get someone else to do all the stop sign circling.
So they have their AI to basically train based on millions of hours of road dash cam footage, and the AI will be eventually understand, oh, when I see this, it's absolutely 100% a stop sign. And then once the AI learns what is a stop sign, it really doesn't matter whether the stop sign is in 12th Street or in Hollywood Boulevard. A stop sign is a stop sign. So large action model is kind of like similar approach in idea-wise, not necessarily in code base.
Probably a little more reliable, maybe.
Yeah. So our assumption is if this is a music player and the music player has a UI, I mean, all the modern software has a UI, and the UI was purposefully built for human eyes to see and human brain to understand that in order for you to know how to use. So it really doesn't matter, let's say if Spotify or Apple Music, they change their UI, they revamp their entire stuff, there's gonna be a big fat play button somewhere, right? Because that's our assumption. And then we set up this neurosymbolic to kind of like take them down from frame by frame on what are the real humans doing on all these sort of interfaces. That's how we trained large action model. And to make it work, the best example is that if I have an assistant and my assistant name is Tom, for example, I want to order a pizza, but I'm busy. I don't have time to do it. So on my phone, all I need to do is I unlock my phone, I pass my phone to Tom. I gave Tom, I unlocked the iPhone, and I said, hey, Tom, go get me a pizza on DoorDash, right? And Tom does not need to know my password because I authenticated to him, and Tom knows how to use DoorDash to get the pizza. So all I need to do is I talk to Tom, Tom get me a pizza through DoorDash, right? So in this case, Tom is large action model. That's kind of like the idea.
Gotcha. And so I want to talk about that because this is where people in security and privacy are like, for instance, Meredith Whitaker, who was just up here and just backstage, I was like, oh yeah, and I'm talking with Jessie from Rabbit. And she was like, wait, tell me how that works again. And then when I said so, she was like, it does what? And how can they guarantee the security? This sounds like a nightmare. So can you explain why it's not a nightmare? Just imagine Meredith is listening because she will watch this later.
Well, there is a lot of misunderstandings towards how LAN, access on behalf of you. We do have a full privacy page on our website explaining in detail, but I actually kind of like already explained it. When you get a device, if you choose not to log in with any of your third-party application account, this is by default the best GPT device out there. But if you go to what we call rabbit hole, it's like a website. You go to rabbit hole and you start connecting with your Uber account, with your Spotify account, with your DoorDash account, etc., etc. What happens is that we don't save your credential. We never save your credential because we don't need to and we don't want to. And after you hit connect Spotify, it redirects you to Spotify login page. And you do all the login process on each of the third-party system, not on here. RabbitOS will recognize, oh, this account has been connected with that particular R1, and you only need to do that once. So it remembers, it connects with it.
So does it keep like a virtual session open in like a web browser somewhere in the cloud or whatever?
So all the large language model is running in the cloud, but we're not doing a virtual instance for each user. We have a super cloud host and has a super advanced DOM. We actually had a patent run that basically handles all the traffics. But just like what I described, I'm giving my phone to Tom, and Tom is ordering a pizza from DoorDash. Tom does not need to know my credit card info or iPhone password.
Yeah, I'm worried about it's just like I'm worried about the guy standing next to Tom who's like looking and being like, okay, Spotify, huh? Looks good. What was what was that you just played?
Yeah. So like I said, we don't even handle payment here because you don't bind your credit card info here. What happens is that when you log in, for instance, when you log in with Uber, you get a car, and on your Uber settings, you have that saved in their server, and it's just charged by your connected card. We don't handle that. Yeah.
Speaking of credit cards, how are you going to make money? It feels like $200, no subscription, and we didn't talk about this yet, but you do use third-party LLMs like Perplexity and what have you for the intent part that you mentioned, right? There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Just do an API to whoever.
Yeah.
Like it feels like It feels like you're throwing. There's a lot of money involved here, and $200 doesn't cover the bill.
Yeah. I mean, I think investors asked about the same question before they decide to invest us, right? And they're not dumb. So, so first of all, we're not losing money by selling R1, which is a very, very, very significant achievement, especially for new startup on Gen 1. I gave all the credit to my hardware team. Amazing guys, being able to basically negotiate down to the parts and the BOM cost. So we're making money selling R1. And we're not looking for a subscription model because we don't think that's a good way to go in general. We have a teach mode, right? The idea is that with teach mode, using LAM, anyone can go there, show the LAM how you work on any software for one take, and the teach mode will be able to generate a new rabbit for you, and then you can choose to publish that rabbit, and then it's like classic app store logic. You can sell your creation, and others will buy it, and then we can take a portion through it. But that's in the long run. That's definitely not day one. But overall, I think, we're not going to be bankrupt by selling more units, and I'm not worried about that. And in fact, Perplexity is not costing us; it's benefiting us because all the R1, or the first 100,000 R1, they offer $200 credit on their app version. So it's a free 1 year's credit that they offer to us. But all the Perplexity on R1 is free, is grandfathered. So if you buy a R1, if your first 100,000 orders, the device is effectively free because you got free Perplexity here forever, and then you got $200 credit. So I think what everyone is trying to do here is really genius. Yeah.
Oh, well, sounds good. Except there are enormous multinational billion-dollar companies, trillion-dollar companies that probably want to snap you up. Google and Microsoft, we talked about this, are fighting this proxy battle with OpenAI and Anthropic and stuff. And so I think they're kind of occupied with each other. But Tim Cook just said, like yesterday, said that Apple is going to break new ground, that's me making apostrophes, in AI this year. That sounds like, to me, my suspicion is Siri with an action model that can operate iPhone apps and other stuff. Otherwise, I don't know why they even bother making a model. Do you feel threatened by any of these titans?
Well, first of all, I'm not delusional to where that we think that we're not a startup. We are a startup. I mean, the first lesson I ever learned from Y Combinator 10 years ago is that 99% of startup will die. That's the very first lesson I learned. So as a startup, you're betting the odds, like no question about it. Then the second part is I don't care. Like they're gonna do what they're gonna do, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, right? Like if your mentality as an entrepreneur is that, oh, I have a genius idea and I can guarantee this will work no matter whether all this big tech company, whatever they try, this is just fundamental a better idea. I mean, you're delusional. There's no such thing like that. Reality is that startup is a survival game, and you better spend your time focusing on your own stuff other than concerning about this, and that, and that. There are gotta be some founders, when they heard Apple is doing Apple cars, they stopped, right? There gotta be some guys out there. Now what? They just canceled, right? So I think it's good to have this level of competition that only gonna help us grow faster or die faster, which is the nature of startups. But what was that? It's either or. I don't know yet. I'm trying my best like I said, it's a survival game. Yeah.
Live fast, die fast. The life of a startup. Well, thanks, Jesse. We're out of time. Thanks very much for coming out.